I think,
But that shit's expensive.
and that's also the thing. I was just thinking about the cows, and I remember someone once, it's that idea that these cows live a really happy life. They have a great time. They're bloody, not quite massaged like the Kobe beef of the 90s or whatever, but they have a really good time if they get looked after, and the right producers looking after them well and feeding them well, the
And
right
support those
things,
guys.
no hormones, no antibiotics, all that kind of stuff. But just looking after these cows, they just have one bad day.
Yeah.
But that bad day means that we get to eat
You're
them.
going to get that same bad day eventually.
Exactly right.
am I.
So probably not the same.
With a
He finds places that, and we are recording, so Phil, we'll have you on here one day. Mark my word.
Please.
I love it. I think he's so good. It's just, and that's the thing. It's like he's just a human being. He's just a real dude. He's not like a fucking absolute.
I like how
food
he's eating.
wanker.
He's eating here, but he's looking at that stall over there, and he's like, "What's that?"
Yeah, exactly
And then
right.
he's over there for a bit
I'll
of
have that.
brain curry.
There's one episode where he's eating. There's like these little food trucks, like 4 or 5 food trucks, and he eats something off every single one of them. He's like, how is this dude even alive? I mean, his cholesterol must be like 870. But yeah, I love him. I love watching him. We put it on when it's just like we don't have to think.
Yeah.
And it's just like watching
Aimlessly
it. But it's
watching it.
fun
I
because
did
it
that
just
last
brings
night
so
with
much
Entourage.
joy to it. Entourage.
Yeah.
The actual Entourage,
yeah.
the movie or the
No, the
series.
started season 1, episode 1.
Really?
Again. I love that show. It's so.
It's so good.
It is. And I watched the first half of episode 1, and I'm like, I can't remember any of this.
Yeah, it's probably good. The other one that I like that for me is Californication.
Oh yeah, it's basically the same thing.
Similar, yeah, dark. So much fun though.
Vincent Chase.
Yeah.
Vincent
I'd love
Chase
to know
is
how
just fucking
far.
rooting everything.
Oh,
isn't it?
so amazing. Which is, but yeah. Anyway, Mark Wahlberg. That's another one. We'll come for you too.
Wahlburgers in Australia.
Is he?
Yeah, they're going hard.
Oh, are they Wahlburgers?
Yeah, I think they wanted to side at the wharf here.
Do they?
Wahlburgers, yep. See the In-N-Out pop-up burger
In Brisbane?
Brizzy?
Yeah, I did. It was like 2.5 hours something to line up. But are they that? I've never had one. I've just never had one. I don't know. Are they that good
Fuck.
for a burger?
It's a decent burger, but Jesus Christ, I'm not lining up for 2 hours.
I'll tell you what. I'll take Ben's 9 times out of 10.
How good is that joint?
I mean,
Clearly they're still going, right?
Ben's. Yeah.
Fuck, they're good burgers.
It's such a. Have you had the breakfast one? I don't know if they still do it anymore. But they did do breakfast at one point in time, and it was just unreal.
Fad or not?
What do you mean?
Burgers.
Burgers, are they a fad?
Mm.
No,
That's what I think.
no, absolutely not. I mean, they can be,
Yeah.
but then you look at somewhere like up here, up at Palmwoods, those fucking
should get
bricks,
those guys.
those 25.
God, those
That
guys.
thing is so ridiculous how big that burger is. But then you sit there and I've never had the big one because it's like
Back it up with a kilo cream donut.
Yeah,
from
perfect.
Jenna at Kenilworth Bakery.
Kenilworth Bakery. Yeah,
She's a good person. to have.
That's a good call. How to increase your cholesterol by 100 points? Just go to Palmwoods.
Piggyback.
So you go to Piggyback, you go to Rick's, you go to the sausage. Is that sausage roll place still there? That's
They're
bad
good.
news. That place.
They're good.
First time I went there, I bought 6 sausage rolls, and by the time I was driving home when I was living in Mullaney, I don't reckon on 2 of them got home. Like I think I had at least 2 before I got up the hill,
Travis
which is like
Watson
10 minutes.
Put me onto that, John.
I think he
He
might
was-
have got me onto it as
Yeah,
well.
he was like, "Oh, you've got to have a sausage roll."
I think he might have brought the big
every
one,
single
though.
time he goes to the range.
Yeah.
he heads
Sausage
back down
roll.
Razorback Road into Palmwoods.
It makes sense. It's worth it. What's the name of that place?
I don't know. Trying to keep it secret.
Oh, right. Sorry. Don't go there. It's not great. So last episode, we were talking about trends in hospitality. We were talking about technology, and we sort of started to talk about the green options. I want to sort of bring that back a little bit because I don't think we sort of finished that, if that makes sense. We kind of cut it off because Corey's being tight with his data. But we had to, I think there's certain things in there that you touched on in terms of, green practices and sustainability. And I think people's expectations potentially, are a lot higher than what the reality is that some businesses can achieve.
Yep.
But it's also one of the things, and this is coming probably more so in the hotel industry and travel, is that people are thinking about where they're staying and where they're going based on all of these sort of decisions. All of these. What's the way to say that? They're considering the impact that they're going to have.
practices,
Yeah, based on where they're staying.
I went to Hayman Island a couple of Christmases ago, And one of the things that I noticed, and it was one of the first things I noticed when we got to the hotel, is that they put a lot of effort. Oh, granted, they're sitting in the Great Barrier Reef, so they should.
Yeah.
But as soon as you get there, you get a little tote bag, you get a water bottle, and on every corner of every block, there's refillable.
Yeah. Like water stations. Yeah.
They don't sell bottled water, which I think is fantastic. Unless you go to the restaurant,
then it's free. It's included. Yeah.
Yeah. So you're just hitting the water.
Yeah.
Granted, they run all their water off a desalination plant as well. So
right.
I don't know whether that's got much to do with it, but it certainly is a very much a green thought that those guys had, and it was a talking point. One, you got a free water bottle, and everyone's like, "Oh, I've got a Heyman water bottle." But two, you can see that they're making some type of effort to do that. Can you imagine the expense of that?
Huge. Unbelievable.
What's the water bottle cost? If they're buying 1 million at a time, they're getting it for $1 each, $2
probably
each.
More, you know.
And you think, how many people are staying in the island? Is it 1,000 a week? That's that's a lot.
It's a lot. Yeah, absolutely. But again, it's something.
Yeah.
And, last episode you talked about something's better than nothing.
Yeah.
And I think that is true. One of the things that you did mention paper straws. Can we seriously, there's got to be another option. Someone, for the love of God, come up with a fucking paper straw that doesn't melt.
There's one that we use in the restaurants that's made out of corn flour, and they hold up very, very well. It
thickens every drink.
No, it doesn't. But say if it in landfill or in the ocean, it's biodegradable over a period of time.
Yeah.
And I believe that that's as good as you can get without going to like a glass straw or a metal straw, which is fucking gross if you ask me.
Metal straws aren't for me. I don't like that. It's the flavour.
Yeah.
It's a feeling, really.
But what about, has it been washed properly?
Yeah.
Has it been dried properly?
Yeah.
How are you drying it? And
I'm sure there's technology that, probably exists. If you're putting it through an RO dishwasher and that kind of stuff, drying it's a whole other story.
Imagine if we only use metals or glass straws here, and then your job at the end of the night was to polish and clean the glass straw. You'd end up topping yourself.
Well, I think the thing is that it'd also take you 6 years to, I'd be here all day, every day polishing straw.
I really think the technology is going to double down.
Yeah.
And when the technology gets better and it gets cheaper,
then it becomes easier to...
More people will... Because I think, in general, people want to do the right thing. That's what I think. And I think if they had an option and it was the same price, most people would go the greener option.
Yeah.
That's what I think.
I think you're 100% right. I think, one of the things where you can sort of see that happening probably more visually these days is takeaway containers.
Yeah.
A lot of people are moving away from plastics and or single-use plastics anyway, and moving into other options, whether they're paper or cardboard or whatever it may be, because the quality has improved. God, I remember using paper boats to serve something in a function, I don't know how many years ago, and they just fell apart.
Yeah.
They literally fell apart. And it's like, this is awesome. So people were standing there with beef stroganoff in their hands after about 3 minutes. Didn't go down so well. But the client was adamant they wanted to use these paper. They were paper.
Yeah.
And it's like, this is a waste of time. It probably wasn't beef stroganoff. It wasn't in the 70s. But
Vol-au-vents.
How good are vol-au-vents? Chicken asparagus vol-au-vents. They're so horrible. God, I remember having... anyway, I probably need to block that out, those memories of vol-au-vents. But, okay, so it kind of links back in, I suppose, that original chat we had about technology, and this is where it can have a really solid impact in terms of cutting down on waste, pure waste in particular. Yep. Other things that I think about when it comes to waste, from a wine perspective, obviously, you've got packaging and you've got glass. Now, again, there's technology out there. You've got glass mulches. You've got things that you can do.
Wine and keg. Wine
and keg. That's where I was heading with this. So keg wine, something you guys haven't played with that.
We had an incident.
You had an incident?
Yeah, with a particular type of Prosecco that nearly killed somebody.
Right.
Because the coupling blew off it.
Right.
And those PT plastic kegs.
Yep.
There's a significant amount of pressure in them.
Phenomenal amount of pressure in them. So they're the disposable kegs, or they're not reusable?
No, these ones are reusable.
Oh, the key kegs. Okay.
And the top come off it. Yeah,
cool.
There's massive shards of plastic sticking in the roof.
Excellent.
Eliza walked out of the bar about 2 minutes before it went off.
Right.
So I'm all about it.
So no one was actually in the venue, or what time of the day was it?
10 o'clock in the morning.
Jesus.
It was just not meant to be.
I think the other thing is that what I'm more concerned about that is the smell of Moscato everywhere. Did you say Moscato or Prosecco?
No, Prosecco.
Oh, Prosecco, probably better.
A little bit more spritz than the Moscato.
Oof.
But yeah,
we might just have to wait for someone to stop hammering, unless maybe it's banned. It's the mariachi band's about to start. Yes, we're in a restaurant.
Mate, I reckon the technology in and around that, like everything's just going to get better.
Yeah.
And as it gets better, it's going to get cheaper, and more people are going to embrace it.
Yeah.
Because what are those? There's the bags of wine now that run through a draft system.
Yep.
And they basically collapse on
themselves.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I think that it's also about the acceptance of the public, because it's all good and well for us to go, yeah, we're going to do this. And they're like, I don't want wine on tap, because it's like, well, that's cheap. And it's like, it's not necessarily at all. And you can get great quality in those things as well. I mean, you can put whatever you want in key kegs. You can just go, right, I want this. And I've got a mate who does it. Well, pre-COVID, he was doing heaps of it in bars in Melbourne in particular, where it's just, it's the waste is so much better.
And mate, the cost of getting rid of waste has gone up, I reckon 40, maybe 50%.
Yeah.
Like, it's not uncommon for our restaurants to pay a couple of $1,000s a month minimum.
Just in getting bins picked up and recycling. So you got cardboard, you got commingle, you got recycle, you got all these different things. Yeah.
And regular waste.
I know that a lot of restaurants are trying to cut down on waste as much as possible. I know Harry in particular is really good at avoiding, because it's just cost, it's yields. If you're not using everything in either an animal or a vegetable, then you're basically just throwing money out the door. So it's one of those things where I think that's going to become, and it's always, I think for me, that's always been a marker of a really great chef.
And it's ethical, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
If you're going to take the life of something, use it all.
Particularly from an animal point of view. Exactly. Yeah, that's exactly right. I think, which probably leads us into the next thing about plant-based stuff.
Yeah.
And, you've got some of the great restaurants of the world that have gone down that route, in Europe in particular, where, you've got 3 Michelin star restaurants that just go, nah, we're now doing plant only, whatever it may be. You've got something great.
Madison Park.
Lev Madison Park, same thing. It's like great restaurant.
Whatever floats your boat, but
yeah.
If you want to eat that way, then eat that way. Like, we put a great deal of energy and effort into our vegan and vegetarian menus.
Yep. So you've got separate menus, or is it just part of the menu and depends?
Yeah, we draw things down that are part of the menu, and then we have things that are exclusively.
Yeah.
So you've got to cater for them. The market's very noisy. Is it really big? I wouldn't say it's massive. If it went away, we wouldn't go broke.
Yeah.
But
as in the plant-based market?
Yeah.
Yeah.
And we just we put energy into it because we're charging the same price. So it's like, if you want to research a dish and do it 3 times over a special, tweak it and change it, and then put it on a menu, then we want the same energy and effort to go into a gluten-free or a vegetarian or a vegan option. And then we find that the people who are in that field, like the vegans and vegetarians in particular, are super noisy about it. So when they find something good, they're fucking passionate about it. Yeah. Which is fantastic for them.
So then they'll send people in, right?
Yeah. And there's lack of options for them, I guess. But we don't want to treat anybody like a second-class citizen.
No.
Because your $20 is the same as fucking yours or yours.
Absolutely.
So we don't care.
Yeah.
Do I have a big opinion on it? No, I get a bit pissy when they throw shade on the regular market, the steak eaters or the fish eaters or whatever, for whatever reason. I get it, but you don't have to eat it. You know what I mean? Like that's the thing that if you want to throw shade on something, look at the imported or the unethical market of the food game.
Yeah.
Well, Venomai prawns from Vietnam, like, would you rather pay $35 for a prawn risotto using Mooloolaba prawns, or would you rather pay $20 for a prawn risotto using prawns that have grown from a sprog to a proper prawn in a week because of the shit they're swimming around in and what they're fed?
Yeah.
What's your market? Because that prawn market, that cheap prawn market, is destroying our unbelievable seafood market in Australia.
Purely because it's cheap, and people will take that option.
Yeah. And then the government said years ago, and I don't want to quote the law because I'm unsure of it, but I do know that they put a ban on importing those frozen prawns unless they're marinated. So the market marinates them in vegetable oil so they can just get washed off.
Yeah.
And that's acceptable.
Yeah.
Which I find ridiculous.
Yeah,
But for anybody that's got to be in their bonnet about food miles, then just walk the walk and talk the talk. ask where the seafood's from, and make decisions based on that. It's only going to better the seafood market in Australia. We avoid it. We avoid that imported market like the plague.
Yeah.
Only because it's fucking not good for you, mate.
Yeah.
Like, I look at that and I go, you don't have to look too far about why there's cancer in the world
Mm.
or more cancer, because that shit's fucking toxic. Eh?
Yeah.
So we try whenever we can and wherever we can to make sure that we put some energy into where the food comes from.
Yeah.
Because it's so diverse, you can make some pretty good decisions based on it.
Yeah.
But is a plant-based burger that tastes like meat better for the environment than what a regular burger is? Well, I really do believe.
Ways, yeah. There's arguments both ways.
I believe that the jury's still out on
Yeah.
that, because
the amount of energy it takes to actually create those things. Yeah, and I think what it comes down to, I think you sort of said this earlier, it's like it's personal choice.
Yep.
It's like I'm not going to judge you for being whatever you are,
Yep.
if in terms of what you want to eat. That's fine. That's all good. I will judge you if you try and tell me what I can do.
Jam it down my throat.
Yeah, militant anyone is not great, and you see it in. To be honest, you see it in food more than probably food and booze all the time. With I only drink this, I only drink this. You should only be drinking this, or you've got to eat this, or you can't eat that, or this is. And it's just let me do what I want to do. As long as I'm not hurting anyone.
Alejandro.
Yeah.
From Veef.
Yeah.
One of the greatest chefs.
Yeah, incredible chef.
Anywhere in the world. Like, the guy's an absolute rock star. I didn't realise when he was running Urbane in Brisbane that he was a vegan.
Yeah.
Like, unbelievable.
Well, and I remember when I first met him, I was like, what do you mean? Like, how do you taste? And he's like, he still tastes stuff, but from a choice.
Just rather not eat it.
He just doesn't want to eat it.
And kudos to him. Now, his product, he brought some pulled beef in.
Beef, and
Well,
what is it, jackfruit or something like that?
No, I think it was based on shiitake mushrooms and semi-dried tomatoes or something like that.
Right.
It was fucking delicious.
Yeah.
It really, really was.
But
I think
it's not beef.
Mitch has used it in a few different bits and pieces. And if there's a market there and you want to eat that because it's important to you, then fucking eat it.
Yeah, go for it.
And kudos to him for creating that.
Absolutely.
But for me, I'd much rather eat a burger. I'd much rather go, well, I'd rather eat grass-fed, ethically raised cattle.
Yeah.
That preferably is local-ish.
Yep.
And I'm talking local. When I speak local, I talk Australia.
Yeah.
Like, we produce some of the greatest beef in the world.
Yeah.
So put some energy into that,
Yeah.
I say. Or instead of, like, prawns, just eat Mooloolaba prawns or Spencer Gulf or...
Yeah, there's so many options.
Australian prawns.
Yeah.
It's the best in the world.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
And it's right here.
Yeah. I think that's where your energy should go personally.
Yeah. I think...
But that shit's expensive.
And that's also the thing. I was just thinking about the cows, and I remember someone once, it's that idea that these cows live a really happy life. They have a great time. They're bloody, not quite massaged like the Kobe beef of the 90s or whatever, but they have a really good time if they get looked after, and the right producers looking after them well and feeding them well, the right things, no hormones, no antibiotics, all that kind of stuff. But just looking after these cows, they just have one bad day.
Yeah.
But that bad day means that we get to eat them.
You're going to get that same bad day eventually.
Exactly right. So probably not the same way, hopefully.
No, but mate, that's important, I think, because if you spend the time and you get to, if you got the opportunity to get to know some of these producers, they care for those animals so much,
and I think
like
that's
they really fucking love them.
Yeah. Yeah. And I think that I honestly believe that this is kind of, and it's been talked about for a while, but if people understand, and like you've said it before, and we'll probably talk about this 1,000 times, where it's come from and who's helped and grow this animal in particular, or it could be a vegetable for that matter. If you learn those stories and you learn about what these people are doing, and hopefully we can help you with that, and we're going to try and talk to these people, then you'll understand, and then you can make an informed decision. You can still do whatever the hell you want, but if you don't, like, you just go, all beef is bad. It's like, that's not true. That's just fundamentally not.
Yeah.
All fish is bad. Again, probably fundamentally incorrect.
Yeah.
There is a lot of sustainable farming of many different animals across the entire
It's not like the guys that we're buying fish off a drag netting off Mooloolaba here, right?
No.
Often with the weather shit, they don't go out, so their family doesn't eat.
Yeah.
And
then you can't have fish on the menu. It's like...
the guy who, and it's mainly just our specials, will literally come in with an esky and go, I've got 8 squire, I've got 3 coral trout, I've got 1 cobia.
What do you want?
And then the guys are like, I'll take this, I'll take it. I was at Boca a couple of weeks ago, and Harry did a Spanish mackerel crudo. Fuck, it was one of the greatest things.
Yeah, right. And that's a fish that hardly anyone eats.
You would never have it crudo. No. Like, it defies all logic to do it like that. Off a barbecue, I reckon it's one of the greatest barbecue fish
Meaty,
species.
right? That's the thing.
And it holds up so well to a barbecue.
Yeah.
So to see it crude, I was confused by it, and I ate it. And it was one of the best things I've ever eaten.
For those
that's
playing at home, crudo is raw.
That's a really sustainable fish. Right?
Yeah.
And this time of year, it's prolific.
Really?
It's the same as whiting, mate. Like you could not the amount of whiting that's drifting around between say Bribie Island and Fraser Island or Tincan Bay at the moment. Fuck me.
Really?
It's like they're like cockroaches.
So, because whiting's normally like they call it winter and summer whiting, right? The different.
Starting
this is the start of winter.
Yeah,
Yeah,
it's the
right.
start of the whiting winter season. But you'd see the King George whiting, the big bastards.
Stuff from SA.
They're awesome. They're
delicious.
But they're $40 a kilo. But the whiting the river whiting that gets caught around here is so good.
It's not muddy.
No.
Really?
Because they live in such shallow moving water.
Yeah.
So river mouths, so the water's constantly moving.
Yeah.
It's the only downfall is they're full of bones and really small. They're like shards of glass.
Yeah. I remember
it's nice eating fish.
When my grandfather who lived in Margate, we'd go fishing. Get a little tinny and go out, and there was two things we caught: toadfish and whiting.
Yeah.
Obviously, we didn't eat the toadfish, but the whiting, and it's like, but that's the thing. It's like a Rubik's cube.
Well, up around Tincan Bay, mate, it's garfish, which is again
beautiful,
delicious, and whiting, which is so super sustainable.
Yeah.
My big thing is just eat for the season, and you're going to eat sustainable anyway.
And that's and again, that season is obviously a challenging thing when it comes to our demands. Like I said, if you've got fish on the menu and you can't get fish that day, the customer doesn't accept that.
Yep.
I want fish. I looked at the menu before I left home. There was fish. Now I can't get fish. It's like no. So
we get line caught squire from New Zealand, air freighted in to Market Bistro.
Wow.
Yeah. It's beautiful. It's 3 hours away. So if you look at the food miles, it's less
relatively
distance
efficient.
than Melbourne.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? So, and it's just, it's beautiful product. It's so clean, it's so delicious, and we can get it fresh all year round.
Yeah. Squire.
Beautiful cold water. Yep.
Oh.
Or baby snapper. But, yep.
All right. Another thing about trends. Entertainment. I think one of the things that we're seeing, particularly from an event perspective, is that the idea of you just put an event on, you have some good food and good booze, and everyone will come. It's kind of done, right? There needs to be more, and I think there's this interesting sort of world right now, and you see it even in the short attention spans that we have from social media that. I don't just want something that's going to, sometimes I want something that's going to make me laugh or think about something else or whatever, or watch a comedian, but then you get that stuff where it's that cross between this is entertaining me and I'm learning something, this edutainment or infotainment, whatever you call it.
Yeah.
Have you seen this pick up? Do you think it will? Is it something that the hospitality industry needs to maybe click into a little bit more? Are we already doing it? Where are you at?
Again, mate, I go... And this is just my analytical mind. So you get a band on a Sunday. It's like it's the first thing a restaurant will do when it's starting to get quiet is go, I know, Sunday jazz. We'll get them in at 2, and we'll get the drinkers in the afternoon.
Yeah.
But
have you ever seen it work?
You pay $500 for the band.
At least. Yeah. Not to say they don't deserve it.
No, me neither.
Yeah.
They do deserve it.
Yeah.
So the first thing I do is go run a P&L on
Yeah.
how much additional people do you need in there to cover the band?
Yeah.
Now, some places will do it well. Like I look at people like the Kaminsky's Sandstone Point Hotel.
Yep.
You jump on their website and have a look at their program.
Live entertainment.
Eden Seal Hotel.
Just insane.
Like those guys, the amount of energy, effort, and time they put into it is the reason why they have the success that they do.
Yep.
Their roster for entertainment is fucking stacked. So I think I always say this, you should be laser focused on what you do. Now, if you're a restaurant, anything that takes the eye off the prize should be questioned. Now,
what's the prize?
Well,
profit?
Profit or turnover, because if you can fix your top line turnover, anything underneath it can be fixed. Yeah. It can be fixed with a pen.
Yeah.
The top line turnover, if it's fucked, if it's really quiet,
there's nowhere to go.
That's hard.
Yeah.
It's really hard.
You can only cut so much.
So if you pile all this energy and effort around a band on a Sunday, and this is probably quite argumentative, and I'd love to know what anybody else thinks of it. Pay $500 on a band. Why don't you invite 10 people and give them free dinner? free lunch,
which doesn't cost you $500.
If your food's great, I reckon you'll probably attract more customers next week who may or may not have ever been to you.
From those 10 people?
Just invite 10 people in. 10 people, or go into your database, which if you're using something like OpenTable, you've got access to all that at your fingertips.
Yep.
Somebody who hasn't been in for 3 months, just invite them back in and give them a $100 voucher. Because
So
$100 voucher is going to cost you $30.
Yeah.
So that could be a better use of your time than putting a $500 band in and just praying like fuck somebody comes and watches them.
And I think that's the challenge. It's still an unknown.
Yep.
And I have seen it work, but not recently. And it's also when potentially that band or musician has a following where people will come, and it's not just their sister and auntie that feel sorry for them because no one's going to be there. And I think that there's certain venues where it's more conducive to that as well. If you're sitting outside on the back deck of somewhere, and
one of the things I find offensive, but and this is rampant in our industry, and that is when people think that they're free and just give them a stage to play on. So getting a busker to come in and they'll do it for free. I won't even ask because I think that's so offensive.
Yeah, I'm very much against that.
That happens so often. You would see it in the wine industry as well. Why don't we do a wine dinner and we'll ask our wine guy for a sponsorship?
Yep.
They'll just give us the wine.
Yeah.
Why the fuck would they do that?
Yeah.
And I'm not asking for that either.
No.
It's got to be a win-win.
There's got to be, it's got to make sense. I mean, I had someone, actually I only saw this recently, reached out to me on LinkedIn. There's a new business, I don't believe it exists anymore, surprising as hell, that asked me to curate a box of 12 wines for them, things that I like, things that I'm drinking, whatever it may be, put together a box, and it'd be my box, and they'd send it out to their database and everything else. And would I be interested in doing that, to build my profile, whatever it may be? And I was like, sorry, I just want to confirm you're asking me to spend time on this, but I'm not getting paid, and you're getting money for selling this wine to people. How does that work?
Crickets?
Nothing. And it's like, that doesn't make any sense. Like that, asking people for free shit, and Christ, we could do an entire episode on Couscous for comment. But that the amount of influencers that and yes, I said that correctly. Not all of you, but come on, seriously. When you get people with like 12 followers, or even someone with 50,000 followers with zero engagement, they have one comment on a post, and it's generally a relation to try and get up their numbers. But or would you like to do a collaboration? It's like, what for? What am I getting out of this? And I've seen this in every industry. We had it in the hotels. People would call up, or I'd get an email. Hi, I'm going to be in the area, and we would love to promote your business. And you just want a free fucking night.
Well, mate, the Oscars are on at the moment, and do you know that if you get nominated for an award in any category in the Oscars, and then you get the world's best goodie bag, and in this year's goodie bag, there is a trip to a ski resort in the Swiss Alps worth $50,000, where that hotel has given
X amount of nights.
I know how many nominations are there in the? There must be 50 or 60, right?
More.
Yeah, because their theory is that they want Brad Pitt or whoever's been nominated for an Oscar to come and stay in the hotel. Then suddenly they become the hotel where the famous people go.
Yeah, I mean, I kind of get a bit of that. I think this is the thing. I think
that's probably, this conversation is way more controversial than some of the other ones we've done.
Maybe do we need to car park this and bring it back?
No, I think it's an interesting one. What I'd love to do is debate it with somebody who's an influencer, who's got some clout.
But I think the thing is, and that's the thing, there's a difference between someone that has some clout, someone that knows what they're doing, somewhere it's a business for them, as opposed to someone who just wants a free fucking holiday or a free meal. Like, get out. I'm just not interested in that shit. I remember specifically this one guy who approached me when I was up at Spice's Clovelly estate, and he was like angry that I said no. And it's like, man, it's just not part of our strategy right now.
Yeah.
And he just didn't get it. And I was like, well, now I hate you. Obviously, I don't hate anyone. This guy's pretty close. And that guy that kicked me in the head once on the Graceful Crane Station, but that's a whole other thing. But I think, I don't know. For me, you got to earn it. You got to earn it in some way, shape or form. If you have 5 million followers and you're going to post something where everyone's going to win and there's going to be some value to the business, different conversation to someone who has 10 followers and just wants something for free. And 10's a low number, obviously. That's not what I mean.
I think it's their approach that.
And that's exactly, I think you're right. It is 100% delivery. But if someone's never been to this business, we've never been there, we love the brand. Oh, of course you do. No shit. It's like a great brand.
Book Club, but it's the same, but it's been around for 30 years.
What is Oprah's book club?
Yeah. So Oprah's got a book club where she'll promote a book, she'll read a book, and then she'll go introduce it in her book club, and suddenly it's a bestseller. It's exactly the same thing, except she doesn't ask for it for free.
Yeah.
She goes out and buys it. But you can't. There's elements of it you can't deny work. And I have a voice, right, by saying the cheapest thing you can do is give your product away, right?
Yeah.
My big thing is with influencers, are they hitting the right mark? So if I get an Instagram influencer who's a 4-wheel drive enthusiast, am I going to invite them to the restaurant to promote the steak at market? Why? Unless I just really think the guy's fantastic and I love all the shit that he does, and but is he going to exponentially improve the sales of Market Bistro? I fucking doubt it.
Yeah.
So
and I think that's the thing is you can get swept up in the whole marketing side of it. It's like, oh, look at the numbers. Look at the numbers. It's like, yes, but there's got to make sense.
How does it directly relate to you?
Yeah.
So, that's where I think you've got to really have a look at the analytics and look at how's it going to improve your business. And if you can somehow join some dots there, I'm all about giving your food away.
Yeah.
Giving away what you're offering, because if you've got something good, it's the cheapest form of marketing.
Yeah.
And I believe that in anything, in a shirt, in shoes, whatever, because the cheapest way to do it is just to get your product out
someone,
there.
and put it in front of people.
Yeah.
One of the things, there's two things for me is one, the idea of the influencer, and you said it before in terms of like you invite 10 people in. It's like there's this micro influencer stuff, and it's like there's just one person, like those 10 people affecting their circles, which is like let's say that's 100, and then it's that, and it's just it gets exponential real quick.
Yeah.
And that for me makes way more sense.
Yep.
That smaller stuff, but it's not to say that it doesn't make sense the other end. I was talking to someone the other day who does have a significant following on everything. And they're now at a point where decisions are being made, not purely financial. It's now about who do they want to work with?
Yeah.
Someone comes and goes, oh, here, have a $50,000 oven. It's like, I don't like it.
Yeah.
It's not for me. I've never used it before. It's not something that I want to use. And I feel like that's the exception probably to the rule.
Yeah.
But they instantly gain so much more kudos from me where they're being selective. Yeah. And I think you get to a point where you have to be at some point. You have to go, I don't want to work with those people. Yeah, I'll take the money, absolutely. But then there's this sort of gross feeling in your mouth afterwards.
Well, we've had a couple of guys that have worked for us who've got substantial Instagram followers and TikTok followers, and with that comes endorsement opportunities. But people will literally throw money at you to endorse a product that you've never used before.
Yeah.
And I felt like the wet rag going, hang on a second. Do you want to have a look at this product?
Do you believe in it? Yeah.
Try it, because as soon as you put your name to it, people are going to hold you accountable.
You can't undo it.
Yeah,
they cannot get put in the box.
And if you're a young chef in particular starting off, and then somebody's giving you a couple of grand to endorse it, it's hard to say no to that.
Yeah.
But once you do it, it's there forever.
Yeah, that's right. And I think that's something to be sort of really mindful of when you if someone's getting into it in some way, shape, or form, and there is money being thrown around or trips being thrown around or whatever it may be. It's like.
It's the same in the food game or the wine game. You go away in junkets with these companies, but you just got to make sure that
it's worthwhile.
And what's the end? What's the end game? Yeah. Like I often have that uncomfortable conversation at the start. Don't invite me if it means we've got to put it on one, because we've got these deals in place, and I'm not willing to.
Sacrifice. And there's a point where if you start losing your independence potentially, and if you sign your life away and you've got zero ability to do stuff that you actually want to do because you've got to deal with these people. Yeah. Then where's the fun in that? So there's that fine line. I don't get invited to a lot of things anymore because I'm old. But one of the things, certainly from a wine perspective, in let's say the last 5-10 years, where I was invited on things, be like, who's going? What's the purpose of the trip? Is it just to go to X, Y, Z and get shit faced? Probably not for me anymore. Yeah. Inevitably that may happen, but if that's the intention of the trip, just to get 6 people together and just get them drunk in McLaren Vale, I'm going to say no to that one. Thanks very much. And again, maybe I'm old and grumpy, and I get to that point where it's also who's going.
Yeah.
Because I don't want to be away with dickheads. Yeah. It's just like, sorry, but we all know I might be one of them. I might be the reason why other people don't go on trips.
I think as you get on in your career, your time is the most valuable thing.
Totally. Yeah.
And I feel as though I say no to way more things, and I often feel bad about it because I'm like, I really want to go.
Yeah.
There's parts of me that want to go,
Yeah.
and I'm like, well, my time in and around my businesses and my family is so much more important than getting pissed in
Yeah.
McLaren Vale.
Absolutely. With people you don't know. I prefer to do that at home with people I do know, responsibly.
Yeah, I totally agree.
Last question today is going to be about the trend for alcohol-free, no and low drinks in particular. Trend-wise, I mean, it's definitely not as big. I'll rephrase that. The growth in that side of the world has been phenomenal, and it's still on the up. Do you see it on a day-to-day basis in the restaurants?
In particular, with zero beer.
Beer.
Yep.
Yeah. More than anything else.
Yeah, because I don't understand the others as well. Like I've tried to.
Yeah.
I've tried to understand.
Doing like spirits and wine and distilled. Yeah.
Because I find that incredibly difficult for my brain to process. Why I'd have a non-alcoholic gin and tonic. Because I'd rather just have soda water.
Yeah.
But you have a decent zero beer, and there's a few of them out there now.
Yeah, absolutely.
It tastes like fucking beer.
Yeah.
Like it legitimately tastes like beer.
Absolutely.
For me, I'm trying desperately hard not to drink during the week.
Yep.
Unless it's an occasion or there's an event on.
Yeah.
So to go into a restaurant and have one, you just got to ask yourself, is the calories worth it? And for a guy who's battling weight his entire life, I sit back and I go, fuck.
Yeah, I'll take the
I'd rather
water,
a piece of cheese, So the market, I think, is very, very similar to the vegan and vegetarian market. It's fucking noisy.
Yeah.
I think it's small, but it's very noisy.
Yeah. I think that's the thing is that it's small, but it is growing. That's the thing.
Yeah.
The growth is huge, but it's a very, very low base.
Yeah.
And I
It's like
think
the craft beer market.
Yeah. I mean, I think the thing for me with the no and low alcohol stuff is that I 100% see why.
Yep.
And I think from an Australian point of view, we're shit at drinking, or we're very good at it, which makes us shit at it. We don't have the culture around drinking like that Europe does about, you have food, you have wine, you have food. We just have a back deck and we get shit-faced. And I use that story all the time, but it's so true.
Yeah.
A
lot of people in Australia they drink to get wasted.
To get drunk, exactly. And there's a heat thing about that, there's everything else. But there's also this, and I've had a couple of periods in my life where I haven't drunk for a significant amount of time, 6 months, almost 12 months, for different reasons. And what's really disappointing is when you do that, in the hospitality industry in particular, the names you get called, the grief you get from not drinking is just like, what are we talking about? Why? Why is this an issue? So I think there's almost this responsibility that people feel like they need to make it look like they're drinking. It's like, can you put that non-alcoholic whatever in a wine glass so it looks like I'm drinking wine? Put a lime in it so it looks like it's gin and tonic as opposed to just being tonic. And there's people I know that they've just drunk straight tonic water for years, and everyone thinks they're the biggest pissheads. And I was like, they haven't drunk a bloody thing. Because it just looks like they are.
Isn't that sad?
But I think it's really sad. And I remember a wine writer in Sydney, we had a conversation once about this. We were just not drinking at the same time. And he said he actually lost friendships over it, where people just gave him so much shit. And he's like, you know what? This is not about you.
Yeah.
So it's like
I can still sit down and enjoy your company.
Absolutely. It's like I don't have to get munted every time I go out.
I had lunch a couple of weeks ago with a friend of mine who's a doctor, and I arrived 10 minutes late, and he was on his beer.
He's ready to go.
Like, fuck! I thought he was working.
Yeah.
And I'm like, mate. He goes, yeah, I've got a client at 2:30. It was like 12:30. I was like looking at his beer, and he goes, zero beer, mate.
Yeah.
I'm like, fuck, mate, you're sitting right on the window.
Yeah.
I don't think there's going to be questions asked for that.
Yeah.
Then I had one with him, and I was like, fuck, we had two.
Yeah.
It was delicious.
Yeah, absolutely.
It was great.
Yeah.
But then I go back to it. Am I better off from a health perspective? Should I just have a soda water? But I don't know. There's certainly a market there.
Yeah.
It's irrefutable that there's a market there.
Absolutely. And I think if you ignore that market, you're just losing sales.
And you're better off having one or two of them on the shelf.
Absolutely.
And give people
it's not going to take a lot of space. So in a retail perspective, even on the wine list, you have a couple. You don't need 1,000.
No.
But something there as an option. Same with non-alcoholic, and I call them non-alcoholic cocktails rather than mocktails, because a mocktail for me has got a fucking giant straw in it and a plastic monkey. And
do you remember that non-alcoholic gin spirit company? Not mentioning any names, when we had open the wine store, that you stocked their entire line of it,
yes.
and they reached out and said, would you consider
stocking us? Yeah, it's like, yeah.
That's a note. Get off fucking LinkedIn and get your rep to pound the pavement.
Yeah.
And walk into a shop.
Yeah. Know what you're doing.
Like my eldest son is in the spirit game.
Yeah.
He's a sales rep, And I'm like, get off your ass and walk into a shop,
Actually go
because that is such a story that I've told so many times. And I avoid the embarrassment of telling people what brand it was.
Yeah.
But it's like, fucking 101 sales,
Yeah.
mate. Get out there and get in front
Have
of
you
it.
heard of us? Yeah,
Oh
we've got
my
you all.
God, yeah, we've got the entire line for the next week before we fucking delist you.
Yeah. All right.
Anyway, yeah, noisy market. I reckon it's growing.
Worthwhile.
With you.
Definitely. Absolutely. All right. We're going to have to cut that off again. We'll probably have to do another 17 of these when it comes to trends, it seems. But all good. We'll be back with another episode very shortly.